Hey everybody, Peter Maravellis here. Welcome to session 2 of our day-long event. It's titled Deconstructing Oligarchy, How Wealthy Elites Undermine Democracy and Our Survival on the Planet. We'll be taking a deep dive into the methods and philosophy of the ultra-rich and that they've come to adversely affect our lives and survival on this sphere. We'll be exploring how we can change the political and social paradigms and offer meaningful resistance in the service of a more equitable, just, and sustainable model for living. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral grounds of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, also known as the San Francisco Bay Area. I would like to take this moment to honor those who have come before us as stewards of the land and offer our respects. So our next session will be chaired by Douglas Rushkoff. He is no stranger to City Lights. We have featured him before many times, have the distinct pleasure of having him in-house and now before you virtually. Douglas Rushkoff is professor of media theory and digital economics at Queens CUNY, named one of the world's 10 most influential intellectuals by MIT. He hosts Team Human podcast and has written many award-winning books. These include Team Human, Mind Over Media, and of course, his most current being Survival of the Richest, which is the subject of this talk. Full title of the book is called Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires. It is published by W.W. Norton, and there it is, a really lovely, lovely tome. I will flash it as well. Here it is. We're going to be posting links with which you may buy the book. Douglas offers a cutting analysis of why those with the most power to change our current trajectory for the better have no interest in doing so. Please join us in welcoming Douglas Rushkoff back in the house. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Hey, it's good to be with you. It's still sad not to be on that creaky, wonderful floor. What remains of the creaky, wonderful floor, and at City Lights. There's nothing like being there in the evening and feeling all the people come in, but I have enough sense memory of that to it comes out from the inside out. So thanks for creating this space, however it has to be created. I can feel the vibes. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit. I'm really interested in having a conversation with my hometown, community, even though I don't live there. It's just my intellectual and spiritual home, and not just the town, but the store itself, really. And I'm really interested in, if not tonight, then eventually having a discussion about where and how the edge that you created and Ferlinghetti created and generated is being used by others, has been perhaps usurped. The tools that we found, that we borrowed from the Dadaists or the Situationists and turned into a kind of a radical beat operation mindfuck destabilization with purpose, is now being used by other people with very different ends. And it dovetails with the subject of this book, which is, and as most of you probably know now, because this is the story, only part of the story that the media seems to care about, is I was invited to do a talk for what I thought were these tech investors out in the middle of the desert, and it turned out to be these 5 guys who were brought into the green room to ask me questions really about how to maintain their bunkers after the event, the apocalypse, of many heads, whether it's a climate change or economic upheaval or electromagnetic pulse or nuclear disaster or a pandemic, the bunker that will somehow protect them from this thing that they partly believe really is of their own making. The externalities of their businesses add up to the point where the bad thing happens. That happened, and it's what set me on this journey to figure out why were the richest, most wealthy, powerful people I had ever been in a room with, why were they feeling so utterly helpless to influence the future? That the best they felt they could do was, I guess, hire people like me to predict the future and then just hang on for dear life. as the tsunami, as Wired magazine would have called it in 1993, as the tsunami just washes over them. And so they were getting, and I wrote a little bit about these places, these that they were planning, the things they were planning. And I started to get all these calls from people who catered to the wealthy billionaires, from various bunker facility makers and people with eco farm strategies, and just all the folks who were kind of counting on the end. And one of them, oddly enough, the one I liked the most, the one who was sort of the most altruistic, was a total MAGA guy named J.C. Cole, who used to run an embassy for America in Latvia and the Chamber of Commerce for America in Latvia. So he watched the Soviet Union fail. And he had 2 farms, one outside Princeton and one somewhere in Pennsylvania that he wouldn't give me the location of. And the idea was that these farms, you could, if you were a billionaire or a multimillionaire, you would pay in like $10 million now, and you'd have a place to retreat to, a sustainable and well-guarded farm to live on after the apocalypse. And he was planning everything out, so there'd be a dentist and a doctor and this and that. And when I asked him if he was concerned about, because I watched Walking Dead also, was he concerned about, motorcycle gangs coming with machine guns and just taking over the place after he's there? Would his Navy SEALs really be able to hold down the fort? And he said he was less concerned about motorcycle gangs than he was the woman at the end of the driveway holding a baby who was starving. And he didn't want to be in that moral quandary. So he was taking a significant portion of the investment money coming at him to start a business, which was a business that was a training for, basically a training course for people in other communities to learn how to make their own sustainable farms. So he wanted to train thousands of people around the country, because his belief, he did what's called SWOT analysis. It's like your security protocols. And from his analysis, the way to be safest would be if there were fewer people out in the world without farms. So he wanted everyone to have farms, but because of that, none of the billionaires wanted to invest in it. They're like, wait a minute, we're paying money for other people to be safe. And he's like, no, it's for you to be. If they're safe, you're going to be. No one could get that. And he was a MAGA guy with that understanding. So it was really interesting. It's, that horseshoe they talk about. It's like, we're together, me as my anarcho-syndicalist, crazy kibbutznik, and him over here. It's like we kind of met on the other end as humanists in the face of this techno-capitalist, techno-solutionist frenzy. I guess the thing that I'm getting asked a lot, and I'm going to do this almost like a self-interview. The thing that I'm getting asked a lot is, why me? Why would these billionaires invite me? And why would they keep inviting me after this article and book came out? Why would they keep inviting me to these kind of shindigs? And in all honesty, 2 major speaking events were canceled after this book came out. I mean, one was for some kind of hedge fund thing. And I mean, I looked at the title of the conference, it was like Infinite Growth. So I'm like, okay, I can see why they canceled me after this. Because I understand what the Infinite Growth people are really, what they're really saying. But originally, the reason why I get invited to these things is these folks think that I'm a futurist, because, I say these things that turn out to be true, but in reality, I'm not a futurist at all. I mean, I did my first talk at South by Southwest when I was invited to speak about the future in like 95, 96. I called my talk, Why Futurists Suck, because I'm not a futurist. Futurists are these weird propagandists trying to frighten people into submission. What I am is a presentist. I observe conditions on the ground, like a good old-fashioned Marxist. What is actually happening on the ground? It's just that they don't see what's happening on the ground because they're stuck in their crazy, abstracted, derivatives of derivatives fantasies of our world. But I'm just looking. So my I guess, claim to fame in their universe is, I'm you, right? I'm like Peter or Lawrence. I'm writing about culture. And I got interested in San Francisco because it was deadheads who were making computers. It was people who were, working at Intel during the day and then going home at night and scraping the peyote buds off a cactus and making fractals and then showing them at a Grateful Dead concert at the Greek. I mean, that was my world. But as a presentist, I was aware, oh, this thing is really cool. This is fun. So if I write about the internet and San Francisco and fantasy role playing and hypertext, and then 5 years later, it turns out to be a big thing, people are like, oh, he was predicting the future. But I wasn't at all. I was just looking what's going on here now. Where are people having the most fun? But the New York Times called me in like 1999. Finally, New York Times calls little me. Me, psychedelic counterculture writer person, because AOL was announcing that the next morning they were going to announce that they were buying Time Warner, and they had no internet people at the Times yet. So they asked me, Doug, would you write the op-ed on what this means that, AOL is buying Time Warner, new media buying old media. What does it mean? What does it all mean? Futurize. So I I'm not really a business writer, and I'll give it a crack. So I used my lens on this, which is the lens of a gamer, of a Mondo 2000 William Gibson rave culture video game person who understood Howard Rheingold's virtual communities, if not derivatives. And I said, oh, it looks to me like what's happening is Steve Case, the owner of AOL, his business has peaked. So he's taking the poker chips, he's taking his in-game money, which is AOL stock, and he's going to spend it on a real company like Time Warner that has cable and movie studios and amusement parks and all these other things, before his money crashes, before his money's not worth anything. So I think he's basically, he's cashing in his chips. And if anything, what this means is that there's going to be a dot-com crash. The dot-com boom that we were in the middle of, dot-com boom is over. The first winner is cashing in his chips. And I, submit that by like noon or 1 o'clock. And at 3 p.m, New York Times calls me, the guy from the op-ed, and says, "We can't run this. This is insane." I ran it by the everyone on the business page, and they all say that this is insane. That the AOL buying Time Warner means it's the marriage of old and new media, and it's going to lead to a synergy. And that even Alan Greenspan, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, has said that the synergy of old and new media is leading to a new paradigm. Wired magazine already did a cover that said we're in a long boom, meaning the economy is going to grow exponentially forever. Please do a rewrite. And I'm like, well, look, if you want the thing to say that, get someone on the business page to write it. So they did. They said this is the best thing since sliced bread. The Guardian, of course, a nice leftist newspaper, they published my piece, and I turned out to be right. So after that, I'm digital business expert, right? And not knowing anything about business. But the people who are in it for business, they've ended up in a really precarious position, and they've succumbed to something that I now call the mindset. TM, right? You could trademark it. The mind. I put it in quotes, and they're like, it's not trademark. You can use the mindset any way you want. But the mindset is this kind of scary Silicon Valley belief that with enough money and technology, they can escape the disasters of their own making. I mean, sometimes I call it like the insulation equation. How much money do I need to earn in order to insulate myself from the reality I'm creating by earning money in this way? And once you have that understanding of the world, you end up operating with just real impunity, where human beings and nature are they're just externalities. They're things to control, extract value from, and then leave behind. So technology is not for any kind of collective flourishing. It's just for the accumulation of wealth. That rather than looking at what are the new creative potentials of human beings connected as never before, instead, when you're trying to make money, when you're betting on the future, you don't want new crazy creative potentials. You're betting, so you want to reduce the chances of something else happening. You want to increase the probability of your outcome. So the whole polarity, the dynamic of technology reversed itself. For people like me, technology was about, let's unleash the unbridled new potentials of human beings. For them, it was like, no, 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 let's use technology on people in order to increase the statistical probability of the outcome that we want, in order to herd the mobs into the channels that are going to allow us to extract the most money from them. And we all lived through that when websites became sticky and we moved into the attention economy, or what even Shoshana Zuboff, who was a business professor who was fine with Taylorism and stopwatch management, finally says, well, maybe this is going just a little bit too far. You know, and I guess, so I had those thoughts and have these concerns, and then meet these guys and write about them almost in an offhanded kind of a funny way. It was really meant as, look at these crazy people I met. And isn't this kind of indicative of this other thing, this other set of values in Silicon Valley, where they really think that they can somehow build a car that can drive fast enough to escape from its own exhaust? But what I realized was that as I thought about it and looked around and got other emails and started to read other books, I started to see this as a broader phenomenon. You know, it's not just this insulation equation. It's not just, you know, Thomas Jefferson's dumbwaiter, which is sold to the public as, oh, this will make life easier for your enslaved servants, but is actually just a way to not see the enslaved servants, right? The food can arrive automagically as if from a Star Trek replicator, rather than seeing the huffing and puffing enslaved person coming up the stairs. It was just to spare him and his dinner guests the indignity or the shame of looking at these people. And that's really what we're using technology for now. You know, your Amazon doorbell and your DoorDash delivery, or, you know, Jeff Bezos will have robots make a t-shirt for you. So it's like, oh, no human hands. I don't have to think about any little, you know, Chinese children having sewn this thing together. But so just because the robot sewed it, where did the cotton come from? Where did the rare earth metals come from to build the robot? Where's the plastic goop going to 3D printer, right? They're still enslaved people. They're just on the other side of these technologies. So the technologies kind of distance us from that. And it's that distance that's at the heart of the mindset, this distance. It's this industrialists would just try to go faster, get the machine going. They would try to separate themselves from us by time, just stay ahead, keep the machine going. What digital does, the digital realm is different, because now these guys want to go meta on us. They want to exist one order of magnitude above us. Digital is an abstraction of reality, right? Digital is a symbol system. It's one layer above us. And you can see it when Peter Thiel, he writes his book on business. It's called From Zero to One. What does that mean? 0 to 1, right? It's that digital sense. You're not a 0, you're a 1. You are one order of magnitude above the competition. Then he takes philosophers and bastardizes, like Rene Girard, through his distorted Christianity, Catholicism, to that this is your transubstantiation. This is your ascension, your Gnostic rise from matter into the next realm, just like Kurzweil, right? He's going to rise from the chrysalis of matter into pure digital consciousness. It's what a stock market people do. Instead of having a stock, which is already an abstraction of the marketplace, they have a derivative, which is a stock 3 months in the future. It compresses that time, right? It's an abstraction of a stock, or a derivative of a derivative, or Web 2 rather than Web 1, or Web 3 rather than Web 2. It's what Mark Zuckerberg does when Facebook finally fails, which it is failing, right? He's having his Steve Case AOL moment now. Facebook subscriptions have peaked. The public kind of turned against it. He lost Sheryl Sandberg, who was kind of telling him how to protect himself. Everybody's after him. What does he do? Meta, literally meta. Oh, don't worry about this social. We're going to go to this one. It's Web 3. It's this new crypto VR universe thing where we're just going to, throw every innovation in a basket in order to get capitalism to grow as exponentially as it needs to. All these folks, literally going meta by selling us stuff that they won't let their own kids use, right? But we are all in this as well. And that was when I started to write this book. It was when I realized, when COVID happened, all of a sudden I realized, oh, actually, maybe I won't cancel this Amazon Prime account like I've been meaning to. It's really hard to cancel because it's a whole year I'm gonna win. But anyway, maybe I won't cancel it now because I need some gig workers to bring me my stuff. And maybe Grubhub doesn't sound so bad, or Fresh Direct, or one of those little doorbells with a video on it. Maybe get a blow up pool in my own backyard, and let me add Disney Channel and Criterion to my home viewing options. And all of a sudden, I'm Peter Thiel with my own version of a New Zealand, of a self-contained New Zealand bunker. So it was when that happened that I decided I really need to figure out the origins of this. Where did this come from? Did this just emerge the day that the internet showed up? Or is this kind of totalizing, dominating, soulless world view? Does it have a point of origin? And point of origin is kind of hard. I mean, they've been writing about things like this since, Tower of Babel in the Bible and before. We've seen these kind of reckless civilizations, struck down by God. But for me, the easiest way to trace the mindset is to really look at the way that empirical science and technology on the one hand kind of dovetailed with capitalism on the other. So for the science, I go back to Francis Bacon, and who basically he's credited as being the father of empirical science. And he's the one that said, empirical science will let us take nature by the forelock, hold her down, and submit her to our will. Right. So if empirical science actually has its foundation in a sexual assault fantasy, then you think, okay, what is that about? It's about women, right? These guys, they're afraid of women, they're afraid of nature, they're afraid of the moon and night and moisture and mud and little animals and all that. So what do? You kill the thing, you put a pin in it, you name it, you weigh it, you quantify everything as a way of making nature less scary. You dominate it, you de-animate it. So you have that on the one hand. And then you have capitalism on the other hand. And, for that, you go back to what British East India Trading Company say, the idea that you can just go out and colonize it, just gentrify it in the roughest way possible. And they've got philosophers like Hobbes. We're supposed to like Hobbes, I guess, super respected philosopher dude, but you read him and, he says that we should be able to treat Native Americans when we were going to the New World, treat Native Americans like part of the landscape. They're like trees, or he said trees or tigers, and you can just kill them with no regard because they're not human. They're not at our level of consciousness or speciation. There's like the figure and the ground. McLuhan talked a lot about that idea from psychology. It's like, we are humans, we are figure. We are like this godlike figure. They're part of it's just part of the stuff. It's part of the stuff that you clear out, these natives, because they're just like living in trees, like eating fruit. So we end up today with kind of the externalized harm of companies and the externalized harm of science and technology dovetailing to promote a sociopathic behavior among the people who are leading our what's called our technology revolution. So I just read a piece by all of our friend Cory Doctorow, who I'm sure has been in the store many times, a brilliant technology writer and science fiction writer, and you just got to decide which is which, because he's that good. He wrote this piece just a couple of weeks ago about Epson printers, and I guess most people know this, but he did the real research, and he found a model of Epson printer that its software in the printer makes the printer stop working after a certain number of pages. No matter what you do, they brick the printer. He spoke to the company representatives and they said, well, there's a little sponge inside the printer that collects some of the extra dust from the printing cartridge. And after that many pages, that little sponge might be filled. And at that point, the little dust in the printer might start going on your desk. So we brick the printer. It's like, well, why don't you let someone replace this little 2-cent sponge? Like take it out and put it in a new one. No, no, no. So there's someone at Epson Printer Company. And if they're awake, which they are at this point, everybody knows climate change, bad, right? There's someone there who's aware, fully aware of what's going on in the world and has made a calculation in their head. Well, I realize bricking this printer means someone's going to have to take that printer and throw it on a toxic waste dump in Brazil where some little kid's going to be poisoned picking at it to find renewable parts to ship back to Singapore or wherever so they can be made into something else. And someone else is going to have to send some kids into a mine to get the rare earth metals to go make another printer. And it's going to destroy our world sooner. But I believe the margin, the increased margin I'm getting for Epson, the increased stock bonus or whatever it is that I'm going to get is enough money to put me that much farther ahead. If the whole thing's going down, at least I'm more distant from it than I would have been. And that's the crazy, right? That's the crazy that they have. We all make these kinds of calculations, but these people are genuinely, and this is where some people differ with me, but I do not believe they are genuinely like us anymore. I think their toxic wealth has been toxic on them. And I found the studies and they're in the book. You know, there's new studies that show that billionaires have less empathy than we do. You take a billionaire, shove them in an MRI machine and show them a picture of a starving baby. The part of the brain that lights up in you or me, that empathy part of the brain, the mirror neurons, don't light up for them. It's as if, and neurologists have studied this, it's as if they've had brain trauma, that part of their frontal lobe just doesn't activate anymore. And it's cause and effect. It's as if the things they have to do to get that wealthy, constantly cutting themselves off from the repercussions of their actions has blunted their ability to experience empathy. And it's not that they're sad about that. You know, Zuckerberg, he wants to be Augustus Caesar. That's his role model. He cuts his hair to be like Augustus Caesar. And on the one hand, yes, we should be thankful. He wants to be Augustus and not Caligula, right? Yay. Right? That's in the plus column, Peter. That's a good one. So I'd be optimistic. On the other hand, he still wants to be a Holy Roman Emperor, right? That's not where you are. That's not where you want to be. So what's new here is that, you know, while they want to be like Alexander or Caesar and be able to conquer the world, you know, unlike Alexander and Caesar, these guys can actually destroy the whole planet in their wake. You know, and the only alternative that any of them get to, you know, you take a tech bro and send him to Burning Man and give him a bunch of ayahuasca, and they'll hear Mother Earth speak to them and say the same thing she says to us. You're killing me, I'm dying, there's climate change and all, oh my God. Except they will think of themselves as the sole savior of the planet. You know, I've seen freshly minted climate change billionaire tech bro activists 10 minutes into their transformation that think that they should be the leader of climate. I tell them about, well, have you ever heard of Extinction Rebellion or Sunshine Movement? And say, no, I haven't. And if they were so good, I would have heard of them, right? So they wanted to do the thing. And the way they do it is in a way that's going to earn them a ton of money, right? They end up jumping right into the disaster capitalism bandwagon. You know, let's go to Game B or my new eco village or some accelerationist X Prize, you know, MacArthur grant $100 million solution. There's a one size fits all piece of IP that will get me rich and save the whole planet and give me the credit for it. And that's, so it's equal crazy. And they're there, you know, they're there. And it's kind of criminal, you know, where they go. In some ways, it's not the tech bro billionaire who is of the greatest concern to me today, at least, as much as this crew of kind of neo-fascist psychedelic sense makers who are aware of our collective disorientation, we're in this interregnum, right? The institutions that we've been counting on, you know, the university, the church, and government, all the things that they would call the cathedral, they're all a little wobbly or kind of letting us down, you know, but rather than look at how we can restore them, retrieve them, or bring out the best social mechanisms and reinvent them, they sort of ask us to make sense by adopting new metaphors, literally metaphors. We're supposed to become meta-modern, right? We have a new meta system of logic and metaphors nested in metaphors, nested in metaphors, this beautiful Russian doll. And some of them, it's sort of like they take 2 parts Ken Wilber to 1 part Ayn Rand to 1 part Operation Mindfuck and a little, you know, Julius Evola thrown in for good measure, and you get this weird Gnostic neo-fascist thing that Peter Thiel is happy to fund, right? Delighted to fund, because we see there's a whole bunch of different people who are happy for the world to end. The billionaires I met, luckily, were ones who were afraid of the apocalypse and trying to build bunkers to protect themselves. The tech bros that I'm talking about now are ones who wish for the apocalypse. That's why I call this escape fantasies of the tech billionaires, not escape plans or escape strategies, escape fantasies, because they do desperately want to go from 0 to 1. They can't tolerate this thing. They're like a kid at a Marvel movie who needs an end game in order to get out of the theater, right? So, and that's what we have to solve. It's almost a narrative problem as much as it is a climate problem. It's a psychological problem, and one that we cannot count on the sense makers and meta-modernism to rescue us from. The only thing that rescues us from this is first to be able to laugh at these guys. My book is not a horror story. It is a comedy. This is a Black comedy. This is me arguing with Richard Dawkins, who yells at me and calls me a moralist just a few years before he ends up on Jeffrey Epstein's plane going to the TED conference. I mean, this is comedy, right? These are funny stories that the most powerful men in the world are helpless, that the smartest men in the world are friggin' amoral fascists. And it gives us, I think, it empowers us just not to use their shit. You know, so you hear about Urbit or whatever. It's like, oh, is that really the hip? They're having parties on the Lower East Side for Urbit, where we used to have parties for, the Nada Theater and experimental Pomo stuff. Now they're doing, an anti-woke film festival. I mean, for what purpose? I don't know. What's it to you is what I always want to say to these people when they're anti-woke. What's it to you? What fuck, man? Give it up. But Urbit is this thing that Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel are putting together, this alternative internet where everybody, basically an internet where we use a real estate market model to develop a new internet. It's like, you trust Thiel and Andreessen? It's like, fool me once, fool me twice. No, let's not migrate there. The easy way to do it, the easy way to calibrate in this world is not to go in a succession of metaphors. It's to make friends, share stuff. Have one lawnmower on your block that everybody uses rather than one minimum viable product Home Depot lawnmower in every single garage. We do not have to buy in to the apocalypse. The only thing that will suffer if we stop buying into the apocalypse and stop buying all their stuff and signing on to everything, the only thing that will suffer maybe is the financial markets and the derivatives depending on them. But it's not our job to meet the needs of an exponential ledger. The only thing in nature that grows exponentially, truly, is cancer, and it kills its host. So is that the road? Is that the road we want to go down? No, we are not in service to the economy. The economy is in service to us. And our liberation is not, and this is straight from the Bible, our liberation is not dependent on the Pharaoh letting us go, right? It's dependent on us rebirthing ourselves through that great water of the Dead Sea, or Red Sea, I guess, into a new land, into a new promised land, which is really just reality. Let them have the internet. Let them have Urbit. Let them have the blockchain. Let them go off into the ether and let us reclaim terra firma. All they're trying to do right now, the way they're trying to make money, what crypto is right now, is converting atoms into bits. That's what it is. It's a giant funeral parlor. They are burning the planet as a way of proving their faith in a token, in a digital token. Well, I don't have faith in that digital token. I don't have faith in symbol systems. Symbol systems are idols. That's where things go wrong. What I do have faith in is the people on the ground. And the more of us that can find each other and learn to make eye contact again, that's the one thing you'll notice, how you know one of these guys is one of those guys, they can't make eye contact, not really. And when they do it in that way they learn from the NLP coach, right? It's like, they're gonna track you with the motor mirror neuroning techniques and you can feel it, right? It's fake. It's like speed seduction. It's like, oh, they're mirroring. Oh, now they're mirroring my body. No, you can, if you have a heart, you can feel the difference. So just find the others, find the people, and we can really spend the rest of our lives making these people much, much smaller. I hope I've started to make them smaller by giving people ways to recognize and laugh at these guys and their mindset. And hopefully that will give us the breathing room we need to reestablish on the ground civilization rather than joining them at the next level.
Beautifully, beautifully put, Douglas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we got some comments coming through. So Joe says, with a lot of young people trying, get more comments. Hold on. Let me scroll up. This thing is not behaving.
Disparate groups of people.
With a lot of young people trying to organize disparate groups of people behind progressive movements using online platforms. Do you think our relationship with technology can allow for genuine progress, connection, or does it serve more as an agent of alienation? And then what do we make of the success of far-right online organizing?
I do think the internet is way better for far-right anti-humanist organizing than it is for real organizing. I mean, the internet is disruptive. It's always disruptive. Digital is always corrosive. So it doesn't surprise me that the successful movements online right now would be the ones that are about taking down the institutions of schools, church, and government, right? That's what they're suspicious of. That's what they want to stop. And I do think for the vast majority of us, the job is in the real world, in our communities. I've actually spent a lot of time wondering if for no other reason than to model the appropriate behavior, if I should stop writing books and doing online things or podcasts at all. I don't know if I'm big enough for it to be newsworthy, but to be like done, to actually mic drop and say, I've said what I needed to say. I've had more than enough attention in this lifetime. Now I'm doing the real work of joining my community and helping us develop a local currency and community supported agriculture and all that stuff that we actually need here. Because the temptation right now with the internet so flashy is you come up with an idea and you think, what's the app for that? How do I put that online? How does it scale? But the real reality is scale is the enemy. Scale itself is the problem because human beings don't exist on scale. So I think that really 99% of us can be doing it and can be most useful locally. And a few of us then go online and find out about the techniques and things from other places. I mean, like when I was a kid, there was one kid in my high school who knew what the new music was. It was like he knew Elvis Costello. He knew, Squeeze, when all the rest of us just knew like Boston and Springsteen. But he would be the conduit. He'd bring it in, and then we'd find out about that kind of music. I don't know how many of those people you need in each community to find out about, oh, there's Lumio, which helps people organize this way. And there's Shareable that helps us do that. We don't all need to be experts in everything. And so, there's so few of us are experts in how do you dig a well? Who knows how to dig a well? How do you do biodiesel? How do you really teach kids to read? How do you, the real stuff of life that's deeply fun. So rather than everyone needing to build the website that aggregates all the people who know how to do the thing, you just learn how to do the thing. And I get it. It's easier to aggregate the people who dig wells than it is to learn how to dig a well oneself. But there does come a time when you have to dig a well. So I do think the success of far-right online organizing has been partly a result of the fact that the dehumanizing bias of the neo-fascists is more compatible with this soulless, kind of anti-human biased digital platform on which we're conducting our affairs. And right now, Operation Mindfuck, which was a product of the left and Abby Hoffman and Robert Anton Wilson and Church of Discordia and City Lights, Operation Mindfuck is being better played by the new right. And that's because we are almost pre-destabilized when we come into online spaces. We don't have our feet on the ground when we're in online spaces. We forget, we keep our feet up. We scroll, you know what I mean? You're not grounded. You're not in the real world. You're at the mercy of these systems. And I think that's why they tend to do better and why we should reclaim terra firma while we can.
So I have it's not so much a question, but Bob from Physicians for Social Responsibility is in the room.
Oh, you see, a good human.
Yeah, he points out one of the weirdest examples of what you were pointing out is this article from 2019, Jeff Bezos is a post-Earth capitalist, and he gives the link, we should check it out, which has a very Black comedy video available on YouTube. Bezos exulting over Blue Origin to an audience of his minions, not quite knowing when to applaud or not, going to space to serve the Earth. He says, you got to check it out. And then, yeah. Yeah,
it's interesting. I remember when Bezos did his Blue Origin trip in the desert, like the ultimate example of kind of white flight, right? And Stephanie Rule was covering it for MSNBC. And I will admit, I kind of have had a quasi crush on Stephanie Rule for a long time. There's just something about her is sexy and grounded. She's just she seems a creature of the earth. And I just love the way she asks questions, and she's not afraid of people, and she talks back, and she's impertinent usually with them, with people in a way that I adore. And Jeff Bezos steps out of his space capsule, and her knees she goes like wobbly kneed, like a gushing teenager at a Justin Bieber concert. And I'm thinking, what is it? What is I get it, there was PR and it was all, and what are we celebrating here? Why is everyone covering this event? It's not that he did something new, right? We as a country, we sent people into a well bigger orbit than that 60 years ago as a collective. What did he do? He showed that today, one guy has enough money to pull off what we used to be able to pull off collectively 60 years ago. So it more than anything, it's a celebration of individual wealth. It's a celebration of the triumph of capitalism. I mean, I know, yes, it's going to be low cost, great, no, it's not. You look at the amount of energy that they're sucking out of the ground to do that. How many car trips, how much you can't, space travel requires such a burst of energy. It's just not, it's not funny. And I know someday we got to starseed the future and all that, but the way that the tech bros look at it, from Nick Bostrom on, the kind of futurism and the kind of long-termism they're talking about, is there's about 8 billion people alive today, but someday, thousands of years in the future, there will be trillions of people throughout the solar system or even the whole galaxy. And it's okay if the 8 billion people today need to suffer and maybe live through climate change and awful things like in Pakistan, we're walking around with water up to your waist, in order for those multi-trillion people to flourish in the future. And that's what's called ends justifies the means logic. And ends justifies the means logic is the logic of the authoritarian or the totalitarian, whichever side you want to say. It's the anti-human side. And what I'm arguing is, no, if you're not doing it in the moment, then you're not doing it. You really, it's right now. And I assure you, if you are doing what is truly, truly correct in the moment, then you will get the future you deserve, rather than the awful one that these ends justifies the means futurologists are preparing for us.
So I have a comment from Wayne. Even if you're not preparing for economic collapse, let alone an extinction level event, I heartily, oops, hold on, somebody else is giving us,
Yeah.
this keeps
He
happening.
heartily recommends growing veggies at home. The benefits go far beyond the food itself. Yes, and the things that you can do that you think might be great for surviving an apocalypse are actually the things that we can do to prevent an apocalypse. You know, the more resilient we are, the more you know your neighbors, the more food you're growing locally, the more you're sourcing things from your friends and neighbors, the more you're sharing rather than buying, then the less dependent you are on these crazy long brittle supply chains, and the less you're taxing the planet for all of these resources. So it has, you know, triple or quadruple bottom line benefits for our flourishing and survival as a species, and then quintuple line benefits in that you get to have fun, you get to make love, you get to sing with people, you get to meeting and playing with your neighbors is so much better than ordering shit on Amazon. You get oxytocin instead of dopamine. It lasts longer. It's like eating a sweet potato instead of a piece of candy corn. And you'll see it's good.
Beautifully put. Douglas, thank you so much. This has been such a delight. Everybody, you know, we posted links with which you may purchase the books. Also want to remind you, we have another session coming up. I have also posted links that you can link up to that. If you haven't registered yet, check it out. So our next session is going to be at 4 p.m. It's going to be Nancy Fraser for her presentation, Cannibal Capitalism. And so please come check it out. This event is brought to you by City Lights in conjunction with W.W. Norton, Pluto Press, and Verso Books. Very grateful to all of them. And of course, it is also made possible by support from the City Lights Foundation, continuing the legacy of our founder, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, into the future through public events like this one, our publishing program, and educational outreach, all dedicated to sustaining a vibrant community of readers, writers, and independent thinkers. So be safe, everyone. Be well. We hope to see you shortly.